Welcome to the video Spring Security Login User Details with me Nam Haming from CodeJava.net. In this video, I'm going to share with you how to use Spring Security to retrieve the user details object that represents the currently logged in user in a Spring Boot application to display the details of the user in the view layer, such as username, email, assigned roles, or any properties of the currently login user, and also then how to use the user details object in Spring controller. This class diagram explains how the authentication process working in a Spring Boot application. You see, in the data access layer, we have the entity class user here that maps to the user's table in the database. As you can see here, the user's table in the database here with these fields columns. And we have the user repository interface that extends the CRUD repository interface provided by Spring Data API to access the database. And we use a class that implements the web security configurer adapter to configure authentication and authorization details. And for authentication, for the login process, it requires a class that implements the user detail service here, and we override the load user by username method to provide the logic for the authentication login for the user. And when the user has logged in successfully, it will return object that implements the interface user details, and usually this user details object wraps the entity class user. So in a Spring Boot application, when we retrieve the user details object that represents the currently login user, we refer to this to the object of this class, the class that implements the user details interface here. This is an existing Spring Boot project in Spring Tools IDE on my computer. As you can see, this is the entity class user that contains some fields: ID, email, password, full name, and this is a class that implements the user details interface provided by Spring Security. And you can see this user details class wraps the entity class user here, and it overrides the methods defined by the user details service, as you can see here. And notably the get username method that returns the username used to log in into the application. And because we are using email as the username, so this method should return the email of the user. And this is a class that implements the user detail service provided by Spring Security, and we override the load user by username method with the parameter is the email of the user, and then we call the get user by email method of the user repository to authenticate the user. If the return user object is not known, then we return a new user details object wrapping the entity class, as you can see here. And for the security configuration, we have a class that extends the web security configurer adapter, and we define a bin user detail service here, and we provide authentication provider with the user detail service here. And for configuration of STB security, as you can see, I'm using a custom login form, and also using the Remember Me feature provided by Spring Security. Let me start this Spring Boot application so you can see how it looks like and how it works. Okay, the application is starting, and I open a Chrome browser to access the application at localhost. Here, this is the URL of the application, me admin, and I have provide username, email, and a password to login. My email and password. Login. I have logged in successfully, as you can see, and we are going to display the username of the currently login user in the user interface here. Username here. I will show you the simplest way to display the username of the currently login user. Open the Thymeleaf view template that contains the code to update to display the username here. This section, it is the menu item, and you can use Thymeleaf syntax to print that prints the value of a variable here to print the value of the currently login username from the request dot remote user. That's it. Very simple. Save and refresh, and you can see it shows my email instead of my full name, because in the user details class here, the get username method returns the email of the user. The reason that we need to return the email, because in the login form the username is email here, so we need to return email here, also to compatible with the remember me feature here. To make the remember me feature working, the user details class must return the username that is used in the login form, which is the email. But I want to display the full name of the user, not the email. So how to do that? So in the view, you can change this expression to request dot user principal dot principal, and username is also the email. Let's log in again, and you can see it still displays the email of the currently login user. Now I want to display the full name here of the user, and you can see in the user details class is wraps an instance of user entity class here. So if you want to expose the full name, you can create a getter method here. Create a getter method here. Public string get full name, and return the full name of the user entity class. That's it. And then in the view, you use that property full name. That's it. Save the changes, and let's test again. I have to log in again, and you can see now it shows my full name, the full name of the country login user, exactly what we expect. So that's very simple how to display any properties of the user details in the view. You can also expose a full user object here, so you can access any properties of the user entity class here. For example, I create a method getter that return a user object user get user and return this user. That's it. And then in the view I can access user object here dot full name, any property of the user object. Now let's log in again. We got an error here. Full name web user. Let's see what is the error. Property full name. Dot user dot full name. I think it doesn't work. So for security reason, we just create a getter that returns the full name or any details of the currently login user like this. Okay. Save the changes and log in again. You see, it displays the full name of the user. Now let me log in as another user, Ravi Kumar. And you can see it displays the Ravi Kumar as the full name of the currently login user. Log out and try to log in as another user, Sarah. You see, I have logged in successfully with the user Sarah, and Sarah is the name, full name of the user Sarah here. You can see users Nam Hà Minh here, Sarah here, Ravi Kumar here. We can also use Thymeleaf security syntax to display the details of the currently login user. We need to declare dependency for Thymeleaf security for Spring framework. Here, as you can see in the Maven's project file here, I'm using Spring Boot starter security for authentication and authorization for my project. And to use Thymeleaf support for Spring Security, we need to declare another dependency with the group ID is org.thymeleaf.access and artifact ID is Thymeleaf access Spring Security 5. That's it. That's it for the dependency for using Thymeleaf support for Spring Security. And you can see Maven, we automatically download the draft file for Thymeleaf. Let's see. Thymeleaf HR for Spring Security 5. Here you can see Thymeleaf Spring 5 here, Thymeleaf HR here. Now in the view, we can use Thymeleaf security syntax. We should declare XML namespace. XML namespace, and the prefix is sec for security, and then the URI Thymeleaf HS Spring Security 5. And then we can use Thymeleaf syntax to display the details of the currently login user, the full name of the login user here. Using this syntax, sec for security is a prefix and colon authentication and equal name. That's it. It looks simpler than using accessing the request object, right? Okay, save it and start the project to test with this Thymeleaf security support for Spring. We got an error here in the console view. Let me clean the project. Clean. Okay. Now I log in again. You see, with this syntax sec colon authentication equal name, it displays the email of the currently login user. But I want to display the full name or a custom property of the user details object here. So to do that with Thymeleaf syntax, we can use the variable name is principal, and any property in the user details class, which is full name. Yeah, full name, user details, full name. That's it. And refresh. You can see it shows the full name of the currently login user here. Perfect, right? Next, I'm going to show you how to display the assigned roles or the authorities of the currently login user in the view layer in a Spring Boot application. Right after the name of the user here. So in the view, we can use Thymeleaf syntax to display the authorities or assigned roles for the user. We can still use this syntax sec colon authentication and principal dot authorities. Yeah, which is get a method get authorities in the user details class here. That's it. Now let's refresh, and you can see it shows the assigned row of this username having is admin here. And I log out and log in with another user, Ravi Kumar. And you see this user Ravi Kumar has a role editor and support. Log out and let's sign in with the user Sarah. And you can see the user Sarah has a role cell here, as you can see in the user management section. Let me log in as the admin user. And you can see in the user's management section here, the user Namaming has the role admin here. And the user Ravi Kumar has a role editor and support here. The user Sarah has a role sale here. So that's to display the authorities or the assigned roles of the currently login user. We can use this Thymeleaf syntax from Thymeleaf support for Spring Security. Yeah, you can see to display any details of the currently login user. Of the principal object here, and you can dot and followed by any property of the user details class. Next, I'm going to show you how to get the user details object that represents the currently login user in Spring controller. For example, I want to allow the user to click on the username here, and then the page for that user gets display. We call that user home. So I update the code, edit the code to display the authorities here to use the hyperlink instead of a span. We change a text to a hyperlink, and now I use the attribute href to specify URL for this hyperlink slash user underscore home. That's it. Refresh, and you can see now in the status bar you can see the URL is slash user underscore home here. Now let's write a handle method in a Spring controller. I have the user controller class here, and we are going to write a new handler method to handle this URL user underscore home. So I write a new method here, new handler method, web mapping the URL here, public string view user home. This method returns the view name, return user underscore home, and we need to create a view Thymeleaf view file accordingly. Here I copy the content of the index file, paste here, change the file name to user underscore home.html, user underscore home.html here, and I change the heading of the page is welcome to the user home. That's it. Save the change and let's test. I have to log in again. And click on my username here. You can see welcome to the user home. And now in the controller class, controller method, handler method here, I want to access the user details object that represents the country login user. So how to do that in Spring with Spring Security? You can use this annotation. Very simple. Authentication principle, and then you can cast the return object to the type of the user details object element here. Submit user details in my project here, user. That's it. Very simple. Import, and then I can get the detail of this user. I send this user details object to the request via an attribute in the model. Add user, add attribute user. user here, and in the view we can access this user details object here. For example, I create a form to display some details about the user. Label, email, and input type equal text, and value is use Thymeleaf syntax th :value. Value is the value of this variable user dot email. That's it. Now let's test. Login again. Click on my username. We got an error here. Let's see what is the error. Property email cannot be found because in the user details, some user details here we don't have a getter for the email. So username, we return the email. So here we access the username. Refresh. You can see it shows the email. My email here, and I can show the full name and rows. Full name. The property is full name, and assign rows, which is a property of authorities. Yeah, authorities. Yeah, you can see. Refresh, and you see it displays information, email, full name, and the assigned roles of the currently login user. So that demonstrates how to access the user details object that represents the currently login user in Spring controller. That uses annotation, authentication principle, and then you specify the type of the user details class in the project, and then the variable name, and then you can use that variable name as you wish. To summary, you have learned how to retrieve the user details object that represents the currently login user in a Spring Boot application. Let's summarize the code we have used to display the user details, the username here, and display the assigned roles or authorities of the user here. And to get user details object in the controller, we use this annotation authentication principle. I hope you will find this video helpful. Please help me grow this channel by subscribing, like, comment, and share this video. Thank you.